Hi everyone, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to our 10th episode of Insights in Action with Kantar and the IAB. We're very excited about kicking off Women's Month here today, certainly for us, with two amazing speakers who are going to be sharing a little bit more about what women want. I'm super excited about it. Hi to Karin, I can see you there, and how's it to Pride? Lovely to have you with us, and we'll be introducing you in a little bit. A huge welcome to all our guests today. I see quite a few more still arriving, so we'll just keep that waiting room unlocked. I hope you can all hear me, and yeah, thank you for joining today. We've got amazing, the full industry actually online today. So we've got agencies, publishers, marketers, specialist education. So just a huge welcome, and we're super excited to be sharing these insights today. Just a little bit about these sessions. We've been hosting them actually for about Karin, now probably about 4 months. We started off with weekly sessions, moved into having them every 2 weeks. So our next one will be on the 19th of August. So watch out and sign up for that. They are powered by Kantar AME's bi-weekly survey to give us insights on all the necessary things that we need in order to optimize our businesses, keep business flow, help with all kinds of things from people to product to services, all across the spectrum, from digital channels and all that integrates with. And today, obviously, a very special focus on women. We do have women and guys on the call today, so just everyone's welcome. And yeah, we look forward to all learning together. Just a little bit of etiquette before we get started. You'll have noticed as you joined in that your mics would have been on mute. But the chat room has been open, so please say hi on the chat and just introduce yourself. We'd love to know where you're from and shout out to your friends. We will switch off, well, not switch off the chat, we'll move it onto private mode just so we can focus on the talks, but you can still share your questions, which we'll be asking at the end at about 9:45, and we'll have a live Q&A with both our speakers. So keep those questions coming and we'll ask them on your behalf. Please, can you keep your videos off? It just helps with the bandwidth and make sure that the presentations are in their best sort of optimal viewing, no pixelation and all that kind of thing. So thanks for that. And then, yes, we've got an hour ahead of us. We've got Karin up first. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Karin as our first speaker. Karin, I think you can, let me just see.
Hello.
How's it, Karin? How are you doing? Good, excellent. So just a little bit about Karin. Karin is the Chief Growth Officer at Kantar, working across markets from South Africa to Pakistan, Nigeria, Kenya, and more. And I think just before lockdown hit, had already done far too many trips all around the world. So very, very much a change in Karin's life, as for all of us, but especially with all of Karin's travel all around the world. Prior to this, she was the Chief Executive Officer for Kantar South Africa, which covered the Kantar Millward Brown and Kantar TNS brands. So always huge portfolios, fantastic experience, which she's going to be sharing some of that with us today. Karin is an inspirational business leader with over 25 years of experience in driving marketing, communications, and customer experiences that deliver business results for local and multinational clients. And I can attest that I've spent many a phone call with Karin, picking her brain, and from a macro to a micro level, I know Karin always brings that expertise right to the fore. And she's passionate about her clients and has a determined drive to help employees and clients alike in harnessing the power of digital and mobile to achieve better insights and turn these into business opportunities. Welcome, Karin. Let me just help you here with the share screen.
Yeah, if you can just give me a right to share, then I'll do that.
That should be all set now.
Okie dokie. So in theory, it's going to work.
Looking good. There we go.
This is a positive sign. We have pictures. We have visual. So good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here this Women's Month. And I've always been very fortunate in my career to have really strong female role models to learn from and be inspired by. And I think that each one of us needs to remember that you might be doing something which you think is insignificant or whatever, but often you're providing that inspiration to the next person in the room. So today we've got a great lineup. I'm going to be sharing some learnings from our global findings and some local findings across Africa as well. And then I'm going to hand over to Pride, who has really been instrumental in putting women first and really getting beneath what women want, and how they have really embraced this in their business and what moves they've made just to enhance their impact with women. I think you're going to enjoy that one as well. So today I'm actually not going to share a whole lot of the COVID findings, although we've really been tracking how women are coping, and women really are carrying a lot of the burden. I'm actually going to rather share some more upbeat stuff and things that are going on around the world. So what we can see is that this initiative of wanting to be understood and be represented in marketing and in the world in a fair way is something of great importance across the world. Just this last couple of weeks, we've seen already 6.5 million people posting their photos in support of the Challenge Accepted initiative, which is really about reminding women that being supportive, celebrating all the things we have in our lives, being grateful, etc., is an important thing to do. And if you're asking yourself, why do I need to spend all this time understanding what it is that women want when it comes to products, services, brands, marketing, etc.? If there's one reason alone, it's the economic impact that can have. If you really unpack and connect and unlock the potential of the female market, there's already 12 trillion to be added to the global GDP if we advance women's equality and support these initiatives. And what we've done is we've taken a look at some of the hard facts about communication, about branding, and we've evaluated a whole lot of cans ads. We've looked at, how well is the industry actually doing when it comes to promoting progressive brands, not necessarily having to have, specifically female, specifically male brands, but really promoting progression and inclusivity and diversity. So if we had a look at all the brands that made it into the top most valuable brands over the past few years, what we see is that the brands that are actually gender balanced, that are appealing to both men and women, are actually doing better than those that focus only on one of the two target markets. And actually, the brands that are male skewed could be making a lot more money if they actually promoted gender equality too. And I'll show you some of the categories where there's inadvertent gender bias. So again, in terms of does this make economic sense, here's a great case study. This one comes from the UK. And this ASOS is a beauty and fashion retailer, so they sell products and clothing. And they were always very sort of traditional in their approach, pretty shiny lips and, smiley, gentle faces. And they realized that the actual category itself was too stereotyped. So they changed the name of the beauty category to face and body. And they really promoted all shapes, all sizes, all types in all their communication, literally in the store, online, everywhere. And the market just really responded when they could actually see themselves being represented more effectively. And this brand grew 135% in just 1 year by going more gender balanced. Another one, which is we could take, I'm pretty sure, any hardware company in the world. If you only focus on the fact that it's men that can do the repairs and all of that, which many stores such as Home Depot used to do, you're actually leaving a lot of value on the table. And here's a great case study of Home Depot. When they started to demonstrate women doing things, hanging shelves, building cupboards, and actually helping men in this particular case, how to do it, just changing that whole focus that showed that actually anyone can do home improvement, anyone can take ownership of design and all the things that you might want to do in your home. And they have actually managed to grow their brand over the past 10 years from 9 billion to 52 billion just by changing their emphasis and being far more inclusive in their communication and marketing. And we just saw announced in the last week or so that after 100 years, we have a fantastic new leader for one of our biggest brands, Castle Lager. And one of the things that I think Kutsi wants to do is to make sure that the sports shown are gender representative. I'm hoping that this bottle on the right here will soon be saying Banyana Banyana rather than Bafana only. But really, I think it's an opportunity to accept that women also drink beer, and why not? And just widening up that market will certainly give us a new perspective. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen there. So we do another survey every year, which is called Getting Media Right. And we speak to media and marketing executives around the world about how they feel the industry is progressing, where things are going, and what their thinking is right now. And what we see is that in general, people that are creating communication actually do believe that they are projecting positive female role models and positive male role models, right? And the male advertising executives, etc., are even more likely to believe that we're getting it right when it comes to representing genders fairly and constructively and progressively. But in reality, consumers do not think that. So 76% of women and 71% men said that they don't see themselves being portrayed accurately in advertising, that they do see that it's often unrealistic expectations or sexist or discriminatory in some way, a lot of the communication that's out there. And in many cases, it's not progressive or gender inclusive. And especially for women, many women feel that advertising doesn't, the women that are shown in advertising do not depict people that they can relate to or that kind of real connection. And, you know, we know as advertising is always aspirational, but who determines what aspirational is? It's society that decides what that is. And showcasing that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes is such an important thing to do. So what we also did was we analyzed literally 2,000 Cannes Lion winners and looked at just a few things like what percentage of time each female characters and male characters speak, how many times they're shown. And what we've seen is, this is the facts. There were 7 times, this is what JWT and the Gina Davis Institute did. Men were shown talking 7 times more than women. Men were given about 4 times as much screen time, and men were 62% more likely to be shown as smart in communication. So this is somebody just looking at the facts objectively, and this is what's coming out. So I think there is work to be done to just make sure that the way we aren't putting in inadvertent judgments, both putting women or men into gender stereotypes. And as researchers, when we test communication to see if it's resonating with the market, our clients say, okay, this brand is this advert is targeted at, might be young people, old people, women, shoppers, etc. And what we did is we actually analyzed by category who the target market was for the ad, just to see if there was anything in there. And what we saw is that baby products, laundry products, and household cleaners are only meant for women, okay? Because men have never changed a nappy, they've never done the washing, and they've never cleaned a floor, right? And essentially those categories are actually also limiting themselves by not showing all types of parents and all types of people that are house proud and want things to be clean and smelling fresh. And what we see at the bottom end of that is motor oil, cars, and alcohol are far more male skewed in all our ad tests, showcasing that those are most commonly the target market for those categories. Again, do women not drive cars? Do women not need to fix their cars? Are we not allowed to have any? Well, at the moment, none of us are allowed to have a bit of alcohol. So this is a sad situation. But communication could be far more inclusive to really embrace markets and attract more and speak to more consumers. And we worked with Unilever to develop, they set it as a mandate that they wanted to be progressive and gender neutral in their approach to all categories. And I think just this week they were nominated as the second most gender representative company in senior leadership in the US, where they've now got 50-50 male-female in the most senior positions, which was an initiative that they got going with a couple of years back, and they've been really focused on it as a KPI. But what we've done in all the ad communication tests that we do, we add on these additional questions, which are around how progressive the piece of communication is. And what we see is the ones that do not get rated as progressive, while people are watching them, the facial coding shows signs of disgust, frowns, and this can be watched by men or women. If the ad doesn't talk to modern values and progressiveness, it's less likely to perform well, and those that are getting poor progression scores are sitting in the lowest end of our normative base. On the other side, when there's a far more inclusive, creative, progressive, equal outlook type focus in the communication when the ad is described as engaging, enjoyable, relevant, different by far more people for the ads that were sitting into the progressive box. So it's definitely worth your while to just take a good hard look at what your comms look like, and is there any inadvertent stereotypes that have been added, or just lack of sensitivity to this issue. And when it comes to certain categories like financial services, we've definitely come a long way. Like, this is a piece of communication from 1980, lovely piece here, A Girl's Guide to Value for Money. I mean, because, you know, we need a little bit of guidance. The gent is going to help her into the bank just to give her a little bit of that loving support, because she wouldn't really have money. To something like this brand, Nutmeg, which is really a digital bank. And they are trying to attract a far more modern Gen Z and up-and-coming type people. And their comms are far more showing, you know, breaking down those stereotypes. You don't have to have, you know, sort of old-fashioned, you know, only old people understand money type communication. And another company that we've worked with to sort of break down these gender bias is Diageo. And the CMO of Diageo said that they saw the facts that alcohol communication had a strong gender bias towards men. And we worked with them, watching 3 years of communication and decoding it and seeing what was in there. And then that was rolled into a workshop, which all the marketing and communication people went through, agencies and partners, just to show what are the unconscious bias we're not together with, and it was fact-based, and how to just be more inclusive in how you're portraying certain characters. And obviously this is a woman who's in a brewing factory, why not? But often not shown in the comms. And then a brand that has really embraced progressiveness is Barbie. And Barbie is now the #2 selling toy in the world, and it's shown years and years of successive growth since they acknowledged that the kind of images that they were creating for little girls to aspire to was just not up to date with what was needed to be done. And when they started to show all shapes, sizes, here's an example of some of the newer Barbies that you can get these days. There's working Barbies, there's non-working Barbies, there's skinny Barbies. Look, a lot of them are still a little bit skinny, but all kinds of people. And this has really helped them to meet so many more children's aspirations, and have closed that, as they call it, closing the dream gap. So let's come a little bit closer to home, and how's this playing out in South Africa and actually across Africa? And our team in the consulting division has analyzed pieces of communication, trends, and they spoke to a number of women to unpack where things are going in South Africa. And I'm just going to show you 3 of those segments that were coming through in terms of the type of women and what they were aspiring to right now. And the first one is we see this rise of the matriarch, where women want to be recognized as individuals, but they really do appreciate that they have a collective power when they aren't only spoken to as individuals. And there's this kind of sisterhood, the likes of Sheryl Sandberg encouraging us to lean in and share with one another and carry the burden. And then we've got this Africa initiative, She Leads Africa, which is really about, you know, supporting one another and ensuring that, those sort of gender boundaries are broken. And in terms of this for communication, to appeal to this segment, one really does need to make sure that you see women as a collective rather than just this very individual focus. And certainly in our continent, a lot of women want to be able to be acknowledged that they're achieving, but they are achieving as a collective. Then we've got this need to just be, don't box me. Don't put me into a box that I don't fit. I am untaggable, and I want to be accepted for the fact that there's differences in culture, in tradition, in outlook, and that many things can be looked at. Women don't want to be, these women don't want to be defined because they're a woman, right? And we've seen, I'm sure Pride will talk to us about Tanda Hopa, who they've embraced as an icon as well. She's a lawyer, she's an actress, she's a model, she's an activist, but she represents so much in terms of breaking down categories and labels, and she gives so much hope to many women. And customer semenya is another one who's been used in a number of communications just to demonstrate what's possible when you don't box people in. And I'm sure you've all seen the Always Like a Girl piece of comms. So in terms of capturing this untaggable force, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that we are showcasing the nuanced experiences of different African women. We need to make sure that we're segmenting the kind of women that we're appealing to, and make sure that our products are relevant to this market. And then the last one is about redefining Afrofeminism. And I think you've all probably read the book by Chimamanda, who won the Nobel Prize for her literature. But she's just the most incredible woman in terms of putting across things in a in a powerful way that doesn't make you hate all women. It actually makes you want to embrace the joy and the balance and the femininity of women and their power. And she is saying that there's no reason that women should have to displace men in any way. It's just about that we can both be strong in this kraal together. And yesterday I was super inspired by a talk that Portia M gave us, and she created her own skincare range when she was pregnant. She realized that she was getting stretch marks, and she knew that the marula bean has been really good with skin pliability, and she started her business as a two stove plate, and now she's selling many ranges across thousands of stores, and she's exporting. It's an incredible story for you all to go have a look at. And that's really about, we can all, there's a place for each of us, and let's accept that we like our roots and we want to be women. We don't have to be like men. So I hope I gave you a few minutes of thought about how do you make a difference with women. And I'm now going to hand over to Pride, who's going to show how they've embraced this situation. Thanks for this time in lockdown. I hope that you don't all die from Zoom overload, and stay safe. I'm going to hand over to you, Pride. I think I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can share your screen.
Brilliant. Thank you, Karin. That was fantastic. Lots of questions and comments on the chat that we'll certainly bring up a little bit after Pride's talk. But just to introduce Pride, we're super excited to have you here with us today. As always, anytime to have with you is just such a treat. And welcome to your mom. I know she's your biggest fan, so welcome. So just to introduce Pride, just grabbing my notes here. Pride Maunatlala is South Africa's marketing executive and entrepreneur who currently leads marketing strategy at TGF for the Foschini division. So that's the Foschini Group. These are flagship female, and I would like everyone to try and say that, flagship female centric brands. Like, let's try and say that. I love it. Flagship female centric brands in fashion and beauty with the purpose of championing female inclusivity and inspiring women to find their space in the economy. Just beautifully said. She is one-of-a-kind brand architect with almost 20 years of experience in multiple industries, including retail, FMCG, financial services, advertising, and the public sector. Her work is centered on building purpose-driven brands. Her passion is accelerating the growth of female professionals and entrepreneurs, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be on one of your panels with all the work you're doing with She Says Cape Town. Pride is also an alumni member at the Zanele Mbeki Fellowship for Female Leadership in Africa and holds an MBA from the Gordon Institute of Business. Pride is also a published researcher in the Journal of Brand Management. And with the future of marketing and advertising constantly evolving and expanding, probably more so now than ever before, Pride's contribution to industry as an advisory member for Vegas School Cape Town and CMO Council Africa region is of great effect. Pride has also served as a jury member for the Financial Mail Ad Focus 2019 and 2020 awards, geared for driving excellence in advertising. Just incredible. And I know there's so much more that we could say, but a very big welcome, and we can't wait to hear from you today. Thanks, Pride.
Thank you so much, Paula and Karin. I've been low-key hoping I get to work with Karin soon, so this is like one of my favorite moments today. Good morning to everybody on the video. I want to share with you a storytelling session, and I called it Building a Woman Economy. I work predominantly on the Foschini brand, and those who don't know, Foschini is turning 95 years this year. So This old lady is getting a refresher. And over the last, I'd say 3 years, we've learned so much just as a community on the Foschini brand. And I want to share those with you. It's a growth theory that we are working with, and it's inspired by women, and it's told through t-shirts. Okay. You'll all remember, most of you hopefully, our first t-shirt that I want to refer to is The Future's Female. So we launched this t-shirt exactly 3 years ago when we went out into the market with our proposition that we're about all women. And we're going to stand strong, and we're going to be proudly about women, and we're going to be loud about it. The first thing that happened when we came together to launch this campaign was resistance from a few people. Some might surprise you. The first resistance, obviously from men. I remember a gentleman walking into one of our stores and causing a riot, literally, with our store staff, saying, "What is this about? Does that mean that you are not about men?" We also had a lot of women actually challenge The Future's Female and actually say that they want to be, they want to understand what we're trying to say, and they didn't feel included. The Future's Female was a way of allowing women to come together and saying that they see a future where in it they have equal opportunity at everything in front of them, and that they can actually create and build their own way into that future. But the third resistance was the most important, which was internally. We had a lot of men ask us, if the future's female, if this business is about the future of women, what's my role in the future? So what we started to see here is that we had to literally start talking to every single person about this idea of an equal future and understand where everybody's at. Internally, it was great for us because we got to talk to men in our business and explain the position of women today. Externally, we actually just decided to focus on women. We asked a lot of women what their reviews were. And what we found was every single person who bought this t-shirt said they suddenly felt empowered to wear an ethos on their chest that shouts what they can't say every day. This was a raging success. And what we also saw was a lot of men wearing the same t-shirt, which obviously in design we didn't think of as a male product. We sell women products in our store. What we also started to see was how people were buying the t-shirts for each other. I'm buying for my sister, I'm buying for my mom, I'm buying for my cousin. And so it continued. But in the background, as we started to do our insights and research, the thing that came back to us was many women believed in an inclusive future, but not many of them actually believed in the power to create it. They didn't actually feel like that, have that power to create it. So we had to go back to the drawing board and start thinking about how do you take women on a journey where they believe in something, but they don't necessarily, they're not there, they haven't arrived yet. Another thing I'd like to tell you is that my team is not fully inclusive. So we're working on it. We're not fully diverse. We're actually a team of all women. And having a large team of all women has taught me so much about this journey we're on, but also I understand inclusivity a little bit better. In our conversations, we asked each other. We asked women in the building. We asked women in other buildings. We have a huge network as a TFG community, and it didn't make sense to only ask our consumers when the very women who are experiencing exactly what we're being told in insights and research are in our building. And what they all said was, I've never actually believed it. I haven't even said it. I might have it in the back of my mind, but I haven't actually affirmed it. And so we went into a large campaign, which was about a season of affirmation and women having to affirm to themselves who they are and what they're about. And it was the I Am Challenge. We pretty much used every resource we have for this challenge. We went online, we had mirrors in our stores painted with I am perfect. So the first ethos of the I am was perfect, and the others and the affirmations people had to fill in themselves. We ran a 9-day challenge where women, everybody actually could participate online on social media. The response was tremendous. We put up a large mirror in malls and we had the affirmations pasted up, and people would stop and look at this mirror and say the affirmations to themselves. We saw a lot of people who stood by the mirror were ready to do something, to look at themselves and take a selfie until they saw the affirmations. And as soon as they saw the word I'm perfect, they stepped off. They didn't want to continue. And so we got back to asking, what is happening? What are women experiencing when they see these affirmations? And then the second insight that came up, which was massive for us, was that women are at different stages of their feminism. We saw groups of women do different things. There was a group of women who stood in front of that mirror and immediately said, yes, I am perfect, I am powerful, I'm supernova, I am amazing, I can do this, I have a future in my hands, I'm going. We had women who knew that they were all those things, but could not say it. And we had women who just did not believe, were not there yet and couldn't see the light. And so we had to understand that women are at different stages of their feminism, personal feminism. And we also had to understand that there are different reasons for that. When I was on the Zanele Mbeki fellowship, which we're still changing to sistership because words like fellowship tell you that it's a men's world, doesn't it? When we were on the sisterhood, one of the words that I learned to understand is intersectionality. Initially, it was a word you hear around when you're listening to presentations, or I read about it, I thought I understood it. But this is a very important word because it takes everybody from where we think they should be when we communicate to them to things that actually cross paths with them and actually interrupt their bias. By me being a Black woman talking to you today as a professional marketer in my industry, there are many things that intercede in my space. Being Black, being female, being young, being South African, within South Africa, being of a tribe. And all of these experiences and cultural backgrounds bring me to where I am in my dependence on or independence of any bias that I experience. So my personal feminism is at a different place. I could meet the very same person with the same structural biases, and they would have a different story to tell. So understanding intersectionality meant that we needed to sit back and say, hey, women are not the same. None, not one of them. And so as a collective and as a group of marketers, we had to start thinking differently about how do you approach women who are all actually individuals? This should have been obvious. I mean, from the beginning, shouldn't it? But it wasn't. And so as we were thinking about it, we caught on to a beautiful trend that was happening. An amazing t-shirt happened to us, and it was Sebenza Girl t-shirt. Now this t-shirt changed the game. Every single person from old to young, from any race, was wearing this t-shirt and was trending on this t-shirt. And it wasn't about that it wasn't vernacular only, or that it was South African, or that it caught onto a trend. It's what it stood for. You know, Sebenza Girl is what people say when you do something great for yourself, when you're progressing, when you're in the middle of either just got that promotion, I just got that pitch, or I'm on my way to do something really fantastic. Everybody's like, yeah, Sebenza Girl. So that's the thing. So I do an accent when I use the t-shirt. I call it Sebenza Girl. Sorry, I'm being rude because my team call it that. What then happened with this t-shirt is we started reading different insights, which was, no matter where women are in their journey with their personal feminism, women want progression. That's what women want. And our collective goal as brands, as brand custodians, as people with businesses, our collective goal should be to build a woman economy. And I'm going to explain what a woman economy is, the growth theory that we're working with. But really how it works is to actively unlock barriers that challenge women's progression, women's economic progression, to be specific. And I tried to map it and explain it, and hopefully you can use it. But our women economy is about growth. And it talks to how brands and women don't help each other, don't support each other, they partner with each other. And it's the opportunity sharing that happens in that partnership. And it's how you introduce brands and women to more women and build more room in that space of partnership. It's about knowledge sharing. So women sharing their understanding of themselves with you, because that's what we're doing when we're pulling insights. We're asking people to give us their personal spaces, and we're taking those personal spaces and we want to market to them. Why do you want to market to women? either you want to build their future and make it better, or don't do anything at all. So that knowledge sharing should be respected as a mutual relationship between brand and woman. And lastly, especially for brand, building meaningful products, services, and tools for women. And in this economy starts this energy of sharing and growing and bringing more people in. Economies by nature are connected and they're continuous. So it also cannot be a one-off. Please don't talk to women if it's a trend. Don't participate in the challenge accepted if you're not actually here for the long haul, for the continuous connection that needs to be had in order to have this economy grow. And I'm going to give you 3 tips of how we approached the women economy and continue to do so. The first is staying true to the brand role and staying true to your brand role. This is the most important ingredient, because if all of us in this beautiful economy start doing the same thing, which I think many of us are doing currently, we're all kind of saying, yes, girl, yes, queen, supporting you, go for it, you've got this. And I'm not sure we're all actively taking our brand role and using it actively to change their spaces. So we're in the business of fashion and beauty, but actually we're also in the business of self-expression. And understanding that means that staying in our role of brand means that we can build better things in that role of brand. We also produce incredible clothing and have an ecosystem that actually works to produce that clothing. So this does not only mean communication must be affected. It means that we need to look at the back end and change what's happening in the back end. How do we produce and make sure that it's influencing how women progress? So the first place we looked, I'll give an example, is that we looked at our internal ecosystem. We looked at where women are placed and how are they received? How are they remunerated? How do they navigate our space? And we found that we're in a good place in most of those cases and still have a lot of work to do to create the environment in the office space that we needed to. And so we started that journey. But in the external ecosystem, we looked at things like we have stylists, product manufacturers, designers, photographers, editors, content creators, etc. We have product educators on our beauty brands. All those things can have women in those spaces and can have progressive way of working with women. If your value chain to producing what you're doing does not have an equal ecosystem that produces with women, you're missing the mark tremendously. And then we also looked into occasions that our own consumer tell us they come to us for. We looked at things like when people are getting a new job or going for a pitch or going for interviews, they come to our store and they want to get dressed, when they're going for presentations or networking events. And we've said to ourselves that we're going to position our brand and be in those spaces where they are doing those things. When women are on their way to progress, we want them to have, the armor that they put on when they go do those things. But how we produce every single piece of work, communication, any production, any clothing that come into our store needs to have a balance of men and women. We produce over 60% currently of our clothing locally. People don't know this, but Foschini product is locally produced, over 60% at the moment. And our suppliers and factories beautifully capture this ethos in terms of how many women they hire. And we've checked those stats and we feature those. A second part of it is our project that we did with Mala Brian. This part is about collaboration. So using collaboration over competition. This is a term that a woman called Kantar actually introduced to me. I've always wanted a term to kind of describe it, and her and her team use it well. And it's about connecting all the dots and actually authentically collaborating. As brands, we have a need to own concepts that are unique and people can see that we came up with it first. The woman economy is no place for ownership. It's a place for collaboration. You will trend if you're doing the collaboration correctly. So don't worry about that. So every moment in that opportunity must be a partnership. And the key thing here is trust. So when we were doing our shoots for Futures Female, one of the models on set was Mala Brian. And while we were talking, we were actually asking each other, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? And she was saying, actually, she would love to currently expand her doll range locally because she had created this beautiful doll range called Malaville Dolls. And she had a big international market because people understood the need for diverse dolls. And so we said, well, we have a big platform locally. We can give you store space. So we gave her absolutely free store space in 20 of our top stores to put the Mala dolls in there. And she actually, in return, created a t-shirt for the Mala doll, for the exclusive doll, which said the future's female. We didn't have to do that. We don't sell dolls. We sell clothes and beauty. But we understood that her ambition actually explained really well for what we're trying to do, and giving her that platform and space would actually expand her brand tremendously for her. We didn't charge her for the space because not everything is at that profit level. And so she collaborated with us on it, and she was in the stores, and the doll sold really well. After that, in her experience of understanding what diversity means, through working with us and through working with Tando, she even launched a doll with albinism, which later talks to the connectivity and continuity of the story. So this must be something that you're doing to connect with women with real life problems. And the last part of that is you have to credit the women you work with. Please don't produce anything that you've seen somewhere that a woman has said or a woman has created and not credit them for it, because you lose the connectivity and the authenticity of collaboration. So to give you examples of easy collaborations, because not every collaboration has to be massive and has to be thought through, for years and years. Just go with the flow. The one that was big for us is when we build our new store design, we knew that we want to have the services women need in our store. We wanted them to have a hair salon, a beauty space. And so instead of pretending we are experts in beauty and hair salon, we actually partnered with Candace Thurston on Kenny & Co. And she came on board into our store to do that. That's a picture of collaboration where you are lending you are asking for expertise from someone else and you are partnering with them to progress. In the middle here, I also put an example of the women who work in our footwear factory, and they produce the footwear that we make. And just from feeling the footwear and seeing what it looks like, you can understand who designed it and who made it and who structured the manufacturing. I also included in here something simple, which is a menu from one of our events. So if you've ever been to a Foschini event pre-COVID, you will note that at every touch point, we actually credit every single person who's walked through that event. You will know that the menu was made by whom. You will know who put together the event when you leave. You will know who played the music. You will know who organized anybody. So we actually just throughout make sure that the credit lives. The other side of collaboration is you have to be okay with investing in firsts that are not necessarily yours, but are for the women. A lot of ideas come from women that have never been done before, and they don't have the experience in that space. The reason we're in a place where we still have firsts, first woman to this, first woman to that, is because experience is not there. So you as a brand have to be willing to put your money on it and just go with it. We did Mihlali's first makeup tutorial. Mihlali is a massive influencer today. We don't walk around telling people we did her first tutorial. Hey, it's about Mihlali's growth and it's about her progression. We partnered with Beauty Revolution, and in their first year, they eventually became the biggest beauty show in Africa. When they came to us, we actually looked at their plan and we said, this is phenomenal. And we lended our expertise to the plan. They lended their knowledge of the market. And through that partnership, it's 2 years in the running, and it's evolved into a beautiful collaboration of Beauty Summit, where we actually now can incubate entrepreneurs. A last one that I wanted to add is take opportunities to fix what's not right. So for example, with Burgundy Fly, is a South African brand that's been amazing for 12 years. And when they lost their flagship store, because retail is a very hard place in Rosebank, RMD, Bev Palette, saw that on Instagram, saw their story on Instagram, gave them a call and said, can we participate in bringing back your growth? As such, we have Burgundy Fly right now in 4 of our stores, and their floor space is theirs to own and run because rentals are massive. But in that partnership, we are mutually understanding different things about retail. They're teaching us a lot about how to do manufacturing differently with local producers. We're teaching them a lot about scaling. So it's mutual. The last part of collaboration that I want to share is about extending your platforms to people who understand the content better. When I started, I said women are at different places of their personal activism, on feminism, how to build equality for themselves. There are tons and tons of content producers who have platforms that are expanding daily and are going global. Partner with those people. Let's not try and produce content for the sake of owning content. We have to understand our role in an economy, and we have to understand what we do. If you're in a bank, you deal with money. Money creates growth. If you're in a car business, you deal with vehicles. You create mobility. Understanding that and partnering with the right people actually helps both people grow. An economy is about growing. The last tip I want to give is you have to normalize course correction when new learning appears. This is when the idea is, because we're on a journey that changes and evolves. You know, before we didn't know the inclusivity of women of different skin types or different body shapes. We didn't understand that our brand actually represents a lot of men. This is Baba Ganoush. I used his picture because to me, it was the epitome of a moment when I realized we're not about all women, we're about inclusivity. Baba Ganoush is representing himself in whichever way he wants, and he subscribes to our brand. Knowing that made us change our thoughts about how we bring inclusivity into the picture. And so here you will see that I have the same diagram, and I'd prefer if you use this one because I've changed the woman with an X, and that's to represent inclusivity. Because when you're building for women, you're building for equality and inclusivity. Inclusivity is for everybody, all types of people, and as they want to represent themselves, including men. So these are the 3 steps that we took, and we're still on this journey. As we learn new things, we course correct. You know, as we see, we get information from different people. We don't have models. We have partners who grow with us. Tando has taught us so much about living with albinism, but also living with multi-skills that you need to bring to the world. We journey with her everywhere. If you find Tando, you find us. If you find us, you find Tando. Tando has brought many, many more women into our pool of economy. And I saw this tweet that I want to leave you all with. It was from Hulisani. And she said, "Dear corporates, spare your female employees with these women's day brunches and talks and soirees, blah, blah, you know, and rather just use the money to bump up their salary packages up to their male counterparts, etc." I think she's so right. There is a place for the woman who needs to hear the encouragement. If your brand is doing encouragement, continue, but add a cycle of enhancing their economy to it and start internally with these conversations. This is the last t-shirt I wanted to share with you, which is for me, my favorite, and it talks about woman power, Maunatlala. And this t-shirt to me represents what we can do if we actually spend our time enhancing that space of that economy. And lastly, in true Foschini style, I wanted to share just the names of the people in our current women economy as credit to them inspiring this presentation today. I hope I've given you tips of how you can reframe and think of your spaces differently and use that.
Amazing, Pride. Wow, I can't believe how much you fitted in to the space. And just, you know, I think those 3 steps, you know, that you've pulled through so neatly and so purposefully, and I can just see all the questions that are coming because you've enabled just so much discussion. You know, you need to start, right? I think a lot of brands, and certainly from, you know, some of the conversations we've had with a lot of our members is, like, where do I start? And I guess you do need to start, and there's some lovely tools that you've brought through, and Karin earlier today. Let me just unmute Karin as well. There we go. And I think so to start, and then to really learn and to watch what's happening, to take the opportunity to then to fix what maybe isn't working, because you can't always get it right. And I think to credit your fellow colleagues along the way. And like you said, it's not just about women, it's about inclusivity, of which this is a very huge part, and what we're discussing today. And yeah, I think that crediting up, I think, you know, a lot of managers have been lucky enough to do a lot of courses and participate in a lot of learning and know how to potentially share that feedback, but often, you know, sharing feedback up, you know, to higher levels in the business. Often, you know, the leaders are only hearing what's wrong and what's going wrong, but it's also nice to pass good feedback up. We've got quite a few questions that have come through. Karin, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to comment on just before we kick off from Pride's talk, but otherwise I'm going to start with the question.
No, I just wanted to say I'm proud. I know every time I see you speak, I'm like, oh, you're my inspiration. But I think that was a brilliant storytelling about how to actually action the kind of things we've been talking about, and how to embrace how women feel and empower them and affirm them in terms of getting to that economic impact as well. So great one.
Yeah, really
Thank
great.
you.
There are not only questions on the chat, there are also just a host of comments in terms of all the discussion that we've had today. I think one of them, Karin, which you're also alluding to, and which is about, crediting your colleagues, is just sometimes how that doesn't always be the case, and, women not standing up for women. But we're gonna acknowledge that and use the tools to correct and move into sort of a positive space. The number one question is always, will your presentations be shared? And yes, the Zoom video will be shared as well as the presentation. So that'll all come in the thank you mailer. We actually have Yvonne on the line. She always joins our talks, and just a shout out to you, Yvonne, who's saying that her daughter's going to be studying in the subject matter next year, and it's just walked past the screen and said, Mom, tape this ASAP. So yeah, just wonderful to see that. And welcome again to your mom, Pride, and to your mom, Karin, who's joined us all the way from England. So a big shout out to Linda and Angie. So the other question here from Robin Wilmore is there a toolkit? I mean, I think we have had some wonderful tools shared with us today, but is there a toolkit on how to have these conversations, probably internally, and to change advertising campaigns? And I think it's specifically about getting buy-in from management at the top, as often the people who might be passionate about this topic do not have the ears there. So is there sort of a way to have those conversations to make change?
Yes.
I want to take that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pride.
Yes, I'll share, because we've had to go on this journey over and over, so it's not a once-off. One of the tools is, I think, don't tackle everybody at the same time. One-on-one conversations are very important here, because you're dealing with fear of the unknown for some people, and then you're also dealing with fear of possibly having offended people in the past, or possibly having committed some sort of, scary comment here and there. So I've literally sat down with many of our leaders and actually just asked them what their thoughts are. Then you find out easy things like they have daughters, they have sisters, they have cousins, and trying to bring the conversation less into the corporate environment first and bring it back to the consciousness about real people in their environment. The reason I do that is the profit conversation is the same for any brand. Don't start with the profit conversation, start with the realness of what the impact will be for women, but also what the impact will be for people in the organization. Then bring in the numbers. Karin shared a lot of great numbers on what equality looks like on the bottom line. We've seen what equality looks like on the bottom line. So couple your conversations with profit conversations at the end, but definitely start with something that's more real so you can have better conversations. Be brave to do that over and over. It's not something that you have to do once off. And sometimes you have to push boundaries and just go for the big thing. We once on our Donna brand realized that Donna is a curve and plus size brand. We realized that many people are uncomfortable talking about plus size. So we had a big job to do. We realized we can't have one-on-one conversations. So what we did, please don't do this at home, is when we launched our lingerie brand, we hung the bras in the foyer. So when you walk into the office, for everybody, including our C-suite on the 5th floor, they had to walk through bras, big bras. Imagine. So it was very uncomfortable. So we started with discomfort. And then when we were asked to take the bras down, we were said, well, why? Tell us. Because we put all our other clothing here when we're launching something new. When it's menswear, we put it up. So, sometimes you have to disrupt and be very bullish, but mainly one-on-one conversations about real-time information that they can understand, and then couple that with something about the business and what it will look like.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And I think all conversations, often it is around the culture of change and then the culture of the business. And I know Vedetta's commented here that Vedette Radford says, think conversation has to flow and be supported on all levels to get buy-in at the right time with the right approach. And I guess what might be right for right now might not be right later. And then it's about looking at that and measuring it and evolving it and really listening to the people in the business. We have another question here about let's see, Lizukutena. How can brands outside of the women-centric ones, like Foschini, break the cycle of celebrating women only in August and moved on to making that an always-on conversation, especially with what we know about women and their power in general in purchasing decisions in South Africa? So moving from I suppose, yeah, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Karin?
I can comment. I mean, I think the first step is sometimes, you know, like whatever, they've got the 12 steps in a certain program. I think the first step is actually just accepting and looking at what you do and how you do it. So Pride's spoken about looking at your team, looking at the actual facts of all the elements involved in terms of, do you have diversity of thinking and approach in terms of the people producing, but actually just sitting down with your own work for the past year or two and just looking at it, acknowledge, okay, that really, geez, I didn't realize we actually were putting that message across so strongly. What kind of gender role models are we portraying in our communication, and accepting that? And you know, in the UK, they've started to regulate. The ACA looks at communication, and people can complain if there's gender inequality or whatever. And interesting, the first ads that were taken down in the UK were actually not ads showing women in bikini on the front of a sports car. They were the first one was actually where men were portrayed in an incorrect gender stereotype, where the man had a baby and they were in a sushi bar and he put the baby on the sushi train and off it went. And basically the message was a man can't be responsible for a baby, because they just, you know, men don't know how to do that, which is just total rubbish, because that actually disempowers women to ever do something else if you can't ever have different role models in the home even. So actually they've taken it for the other reason, taken stuff down. Is like progression is about progression, and sometimes women have to be enabled by a man who supports them or looks after children or whatever, and as women do and have for many years.
Yeah, I think sometimes people feel if they're going this way, if that's wrong, then the only other route is to go the other way. But actually, it's a whole new way of thinking and taking, you know, that step forward. And I think there's a lovely comment here from Elizabeth McQuena from Unilever. So Elizabeth says, glad to see this topic is being discussed in Women's Month. It's definitely time to unstereotype our industry, and marketers, creatives all have a role to play. I mean, we are sort of the visual entity of our industry, and I think, you know, we know everything, that the responsibility that comes with that. Elizabeth says that the comment is also to explore the intersectionality of discrimination. So, I mean, Pride, you referred to some of it earlier, and yourself as well, Karin, you know, the discrimination faced by, let's say, black, old, lesbian, poor, disabled, and women is more amplified than the example given here is a white, skinny, young, heterosexual woman, for example. We're not all in the same boat, and neither are we all in the same storm. And Pride, you spoke about we're all at different phases of our femininity, you know, like how do we address that? So I'm sort of sharing the comment from Elizabeth. Would each of you like to sort of maybe comment on that?
I do want to say to Elizabeth that, you know, you are right, Elizabeth, because there's also spikes of intersectionality that make certain times more important than others. What happened to us when we did the I Am campaign is one of our models, white, blonde, beautiful, she didn't want to participate. And what we do before any of our shoots is we sit down and we have talks. It's actually quite a long therapy brand. And in our chats, she said, I'm not comfortable participating. And we asked her why. She said she didn't want to take the light from her Black colleagues during this time, because it was actually important to highlight their struggle. And we started talking about the Struggle Olympics. And we said, it's actually not about who's having it the worst at the moment. It's the recognition that all of us are actually having it really hard, because there's too many biases hitting us either way. Her biases were never highlighted, you know, and we actually spent that session talking to her about what are some of the things impacting her life. The important part here is to realize that everybody's at a different journey, but you have to be open to course correcting if you see that you are maybe talking too much in one area and not necessarily creating a space for openness with your communication.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thanks, Pride. Karin?
And maybe just to build on that, so what I love about the Unilever approach to the issue in terms of communication is that they've specifically called it progressive marketing, right? So progressive marketing is about addressing that intersectionality, as Pride referred to, because it's about, if the whole thing is perceived as progressive, it means we're doing all the right things across all the many elements of discrimination, including gender discrimination as part of that. So when people see communication as progressive, it just connects with them so much more than when it's so targeted and potentially stereotypical. We have to get rid of that. We see Carrie Ann as hello.
Yes. Say hi, Carrie. Well, it's 10 o'clock on the dot. I think we could have this conversation, if not today, for the full month ongoing. But I think what was so important today is that, yes, there was an opportunity to have a discussion, but from both speakers, just a huge thank you, Karin and Pride, for some very concise, meaty insights and tools that I think we can use immediately and in the long term as we continuously sort of manage each of our own journeys and with our colleagues, our families, our world. Is there anything you'd like to say just before we end off? Yeah, just Pride, maybe if you'd like to.
Yes. I think thank you so much for the session. What I did want to end off with is we're in such a great opportunity with 2020, and I hope that you all embrace it and see the power you have in yourselves individually, in your spaces, in your workspaces, but also in your brands. And I think if you can personalize each moment so you can almost be in the present moment and feel it, your impact will be tremendous. For the men on the call, I actually appreciate you logging on. It means that your openness and your alertness towards this conversation is good, and multiply these, invite other people, and make the economy bigger. The more people involved, no judgment, openness, the more we can actually move the progression of women forward.
Thanks, Pride. And Karin?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you again to IAB, who are really driving thought provocation in the market and getting people to think about what are we doing right now and how we can react as brands. So thank you for the platform. And then in terms of the industry and being Women's Month, do look out for, I think in about 2 weeks' time, we'll have a presentation by the Cape Town chapter of She Says. We've done a survey on the industry in terms of its gender breakdown across different roles and levels. And it's good. You'll see the findings are quite interesting and some surprising, and some where there's very strong gender stereotypes that maybe we need to challenge as an industry and see if we can make some changes there. So come in, I think it's in about 2 weeks' time, do join and hear those results.
Great, thanks, Karin. We'll actually share the invite in the thank you mailer. So for those of you who'd like to access the event, you can have easy access, which we'll share tomorrow, but otherwise you can just look up at She Says Cape Town and join in on that. Well, a huge thank you to both Pride and to Karin today. We'll be continuing the conversation with a slightly different subject matter in 2 weeks' time on the 19th, still Women's Month. So yeah, keep the questions coming. And if you have any ideas or topics that you'd like us to address in the upcoming future, please share those with us. But otherwise, just wishing everyone a fantastic Wednesday and an excellent rest of the week. Keep safe and see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.